Alright, we're jumping into probability theory, which I think is pretty fascinating stuff. It's the mathematical study of random phenomena, and we've all had some experience with randomness and probability. Classic case, tossing a coin, before the big game, tossing a coin to see who has to do dishes, you name it. Um, the coin's either going to land on heads or it's going to land on tails, and there's no discernible intentionality that the coin has. It's random whether it's going to land on heads or tails, and that's why we flip coins. We want something that's purely random. Um, so so let's go over some basic concepts here in probability. So suppose you toss a coin 5 times in a row. That's what we'd call an experiment. An experiment is made up of repeated um, trials. So for each trial, and in this case, tossing the coin 1 time, so there'd be 5 trials in this experiment. For each trial or coin toss in the experiment, the coin will land on either heads or tails. And heads or tails are the possible outcomes. So we could have a set of possible outcomes. Heads, looks like leads. Heads or tails. Here's the set of all possible outcomes. It's possible that the outcome will be heads. It's possible that the outcome will be tails. It's not possible that the outcome will be, feathers. That's not a side of a coin. So there's only 2 possible outcomes here, heads or tails. So the question is, will the coin land on its head or its tail? And so which outcome will it be? Will it be heads or tails? So each one of these would be called an event. So we could say the coin landing on its head is an event. And actually, this would be classified as a simple event, meaning it's just by itself. It's not made up of other events. So the coin landing on its heads is an event, and the coin landing on its tail is an event. Okay. So it landing on its head or it landing on its tail, they're both called events, whether or not they actually happen. Okay, so for our first coin toss, it's either going to land on heads or it's going to land on tails. Say like it lands on its head. Um, it landing on its tails, a hypothetical possibility. It's a possible outcome. That would still be considered an event, even though in that case it didn't happen. All right, so the possibility. So the coin landing on its head would be an event. The coin landing on its tail would be an event. We don't know yet which it actually lands on in the first trial. But there's 2 events, and the 2 events together make up all possible outcomes for that trial. Okay, so now let's say you actually flip the coin now and get heads. Okay, so you flip the coin, so that's the trial. That's the first trial of this experiment, which will consist in 5 trials. And you get heads. So this would be the outcome of the first trial. The actual outcome. So here's the possible outcomes. It could be heads, could be tails, and then the actual outcome after you do the trial, in this case, is you get heads. All right. Okay. Then we say so. The probability of the coin landing on its head. So the probability of this event. Let's switch colors. The probability of this event occurring, we would say, is 1 to 2 or 1 out of 2, meaning this event, there's one event that we're looking at, and how many possible events are there? There's 2 total. So the probability of this event happening is 1 out of the total 2 possible. So a 1/2. So the probability would say we could say it's 1 to 2 or 1 over 2 or 0.5, 1/2. Or we could say there's a 50% probability of the coin landing on heads. So there's a 50% probability of this event, it landing on heads, occurring. So in general, we say the probability of an event happening is the number of favorable outcomes, in this case just one. Um, Say like a coin had three sides, and heads, another heads, and tail. The probability of it landing on heads would be, in that case, 2 out of 3. You know, 2 of the possible outcomes are heads out of the 3 possible outcomes. So the probability is the number of favorable outcomes, so you know the outcomes that you're looking at, that you're interested in this case, it landing on its head, divided by the total number of possible outcomes. So for the event, the coin lands on its head, there is one favorable outcome. There's only one way it could land on its head. And there's 2 total possible outcomes. But there's 2 possible outcomes. It's going to land on its head or it's going to land on its tail. So there's the probability of it landing on its head is 1 out of 2, or 0.5, or 50%. You know, these are equivalent.